Welcome to a special podcast of franchise supporters. So, in this show, we are going to be speaking to Mr. Ryan Baker, and he is a representative of a company that what they do is business process outsourcing. Now, I know that some of you may not have any idea what that means, and when I first found about it, I didn't either. And so, today is going to be about learning what it is and how it can be an amazing resource for small business owners like franchisees that have to do more with less and need to find really qualified people to be able to do a great job at it. So, with that being said, welcome, Mr. Ryan. How are you doing today?
Awesome. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the podcast as well. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. And I know we've known each other for over 3 years now. So it's
Absolutely.
been a little while now. And so I think this is something that I've been wanting to share with the franchise community because it's something that I actually do and use in the academy. So let's go ahead and start with a very obvious question, which is what is business process outsourcing? Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It's a really good question. So, just as we were talking before, business process outsourcing, or some people just know it as BPO, has been around for a really long time with people in the United States or even in other countries working with a foreign country. And just with time and as time has gone on with the technology and everything else, it's opened the door for not just the big Fortune 500 companies to outsource and hire staff in other countries, but really any type of business, franchise, small business, or somewhere in between can also hire people internationally. The challenge is that if you were to go hire your own employee in another country, there's labor laws, there's just international recruiting that has to be done that not everyone is always familiar with. So the industry of business process outsourcing, or BPO, really kind of came about, and that's what Solvo does is we help US companies hire people internationally, and about right now for Solvo around 22 different countries around the world.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a lot of countries. And so basically is the ability to hire someone with, a lot of skills outside of the country and being able to not have to deal with all of the legalities of it, right? Something like that?
Absolutely. So not only do we help with talent acquisition to actually find the right person, but once you identify that right person in whatever country it may be, then there's all the other stuff, the HR legality, the payroll, because you have to pay them in a different currency sometimes, benefits, taxes, everything else like that. That's what a company like ours would be able to help with.
Got it. So tell me, what kind of companies could benefit from, this type of, service? Like specifically, because if you are a car wash, for example, or if you are a food service industry, or if you are a personal service business, like what kind of companies could benefit from this type of service?
Absolutely. So we work with a really wide variety of different companies. I believe the stat that I've seen last was we filled over 600 different job descriptions. So in a whole host of different industries, it could be a small business that's a mom and pop shop that has two people working and they just need someone to answer the phone and be doing some a little bit more of the administrative work and data entry, all the way to companies that need their HR functions and scheduling for their doctor's office or procurement for their quick service restaurant, for example. So even though it might seem like some businesses are service based in the US where you need people taking the orders at McDonald's or wherever it may be, it's also a lot of the back end positions that you may not realize that there are a lot of stuff that needs to be boots on ground, but there's a lot of stuff in almost every single business that is administrative that can be done anywhere in the world. And what we do is try to using our solution to supplement what would need to be done as the boots on ground and employees and quick service, car washes, and the other examples that you mentioned.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is that because of COVID and how many people decided to go and move into a remote position, if you at any point in time, especially during COVID, you had a position that was remote, that means that that could be outsourced. That could be something that you could potentially hire from outside of the country. I would I say because one of the benefits of it, wouldn't it be that it would be a more favorable rate than if you hire in the United States? Is that one of the benefits? Like, what are the benefits of, doing a BPO employee or outsourcing, versus hiring someone here in the United States?
Absolutely. So I think if I were to kind of sum it up into three main benefits, because there's a lot more than that, but the three big ones, one that you mentioned already is cost. It's around 50 to 60% less to hire someone internationally, um, just because there's lower cost of livings in other countries. If some people listening in have visited, for example, where we operate in Colombia, I'm in actually sitting in Miami, Florida currently, where it's $10 for a beer here versus I think it's $1 for a beer when I go down to Colombia. So that cost of living difference allows for a different cost of labor, which is really nice. Um, there is the other part of it, which is just global talent workforce, and that's kind of number two in my opinion. There, if you're a business, let's say in I'll use Miami, Florida for an example. And you went to go hire someone, you really only have the Miami, Florida area, which is a big area. But imagine opening that up to the entire world or 22 additional countries. That's where Solvo can help because we really do help expand just the talent pool instead of having call it 5 million people and in some places a lot smaller. You'll have access to 20, 30, 40 million candidates in different countries that otherwise wouldn't have the same opportunity to get hired by a US company. And third is there's just a lot of stuff with hiring people, payroll, HR, insurance. I used to do workers' compensation. So just like all this little things that add up and keeping up with that. Where Solvo helps is we're actually not only going to help you find the people, like I mentioned, we're going to be the employer of record. So we're going to take on the liability if someone were to trip and fall or unemployment benefits if someone were to leave and making sure equipment's running properly and everything like that we can also support with on top of increasing your talent pool and even after all of that kind of back to the first point, getting it at a really favorable rate.
All right. So then the three benefits are obviously a reduced cost to be able to have that manpower in your company. Number two is the fact that you have access to a lot more people around the world to fill in that position. And number third is that you take care of all of the hassle of having to do all the employer requirements. So can you share a little bit more about what are the specific HR, payroll, or compliance responsibilities that a BPO will take over as a service?
To make it easy in that answer, it's everything, right? There, we're going to take on as the employer of record. We're their employer technically, even though in um, the relationship of our partnership, they work and are treated as your full time team member. No different than if you were to hire someone in your case, Aisha, working from home in Atlanta. They're just really going to be in our offices. We're going to make sure that time and attendance is managed. That if there's a KPI or key performance indicator structure that needs to be followed, we can help with supporting track metrics so that you know what it looks like on a day-to-day basis and how that success is really playing out. We'll help with sick leave, PTO, payroll, um, anything that you could think of when it comes to hiring an employee that you don't want to deal with, insurance, taxes, health benefits, retirement plans, and things like that. We offer all of that in most of the countries that we operate within, depending on the labor laws of a specific country.
Yeah, so let's talk about the labor laws because I think that's one of the things that scares people the most from hiring people from outside of the country is the fact that all the laws and regulations, right? One thing is to keep up with the laws and regulations in this country, but then having to keep up with the laws and regulations for other countries, for me, it would be absolutely overwhelming, right? So, what kind of things, do you guys handle when it comes to, employment laws and tax regulations? That can you just name some of the things that people would encounter if they were to do it on their own?
Absolutely. To do it on your own, you have to figure out. I think the hardest first part is figuring out what the market rate is because even within the United States, knowing that someone in Miami would get paid X versus Atlanta Y versus in New York, they get paid a whole different rate just based on those different costs of living. So just understanding what the market looks like there, understanding the holidays, because I know in Colombia, is a country that we started in, we're actually headquartered in Medellin, Colombia for our South America headquarters. And they have like 30 national holidays. So just being able to manage how that interacts with the United States holidays, and do we add in the United States holidays because no one's working on Thanksgiving, and and things like that. There's health insurance that any employee, any full-time employee is going to want health benefits and making sure they're able to be taken care of there. There's taxes to the government that need to be paid, and that's different per country. And as you mentioned, even within the United States, that changes year over year, month over month, with different tax codes being published. So we're able to help with all of that. Like I said, we're the employer of record. So even if something does get messed up, it doesn't fall to our clients to have to worry about. We're very good at it because we have to be, because we're the ones that are held liable if something's messed up. So we do have skin in the game there to make sure that all that's taken care of. But to your point, Aisha, if you were to do it on your own, there's a lot, and then there's even more that I don't know about because we have a whole team of experts that they deal with it. So I'm fortunate as well to not have to to know the full list there of stuff that we are able to help with.
Yeah, like for example, I'm not an expert on, laws, right? So I tell my clients, look, I am not a lawyer, I am not an HR specialist, so I don't have all the details, especially when it comes to the United States. We have, 50 states with all particular, laws and regulations. But that's one of the things that I really liked about having a BPO service is the fact that I don't have to worry about all those regulations and all those rules, and I just learn what are the parameters for that particular employee, and then we just work like a regular employee. So, can you tell us? However, there
Hopefully.
are some risks. Like, can you share? Like for example, one of the risks that I would say is the fact that these employees far away, right? So one of the risks from my perspective as a business owner is sometimes there might be a communication issue, right? And it's not like we can jump and go for lunch and try to solve situations. It's all done, remotely. And so one of the risks is that you have to figure out a way to, as a leader and as a boss, how to build a relationship with those people, right? So that's a risk that sometimes if you're not prepared to do something like that, what happens if things, if I really enjoy the person, but maybe the BPO company that I chose, not so much. One of the risks is that if you decide that you want to leave that BPO company, that you would literally be losing that employee because they're not your employee, they are the VPO employee. And so if you
I,
wanted to take them with you, you can't because they're not your employee. They actually work for the VPO company. That would be another risk, wouldn't it?
exactly. That's a good point. I would say the only, like I said, I always look on the positive side of everything. So I think the only positive side of that would be if you were to take someone, then you're stuck with the negatives on the other part, right? Where then you have to worry about the labor laws, the taxes, the benefits, and but it's a good point because it could be a challenge sometimes when someone I work with a lot of clients that are sometimes switching over from another BPO, and they are really excited about work with Solvo, but there's some things with that other BPO that they were working with. They didn't like their processes. They weren't flexible or customizable in some regard. So they were excited to switch over to Solvo, but they love two team members from that other team. Um, what ends up happening usually is they keep the two team members from the other team with the other BPO, and then they hire a new team with us. Um,
Right.
so
So
that could be
they keep expanding, but they just leave the ones that they had with them with that company, but they don't continue to expand with that VPO.
absolutely. And maybe another one, honestly, as we've been having the conversation that I could think of on a risk and working in another country is we're dealing with other countries, other economies, other governments, right? So there's always a risk associated to working with other countries, but that's the beauty of Solvo is we work in 22 different countries. So we like to hire one person maybe in Colombia, one person in Mexico. So you have a little bit of a redundancy plan built so that if one thing were to go bad in one country, government wise or something unfortunate, that we do have kind of backup plans in place. We can shift teams into different countries as needed. And then in something happened in the US, right? I've had clients that are in Little Rock, Arkansas, and there was a pretty decent sized tornado that flew through and they were all losing power. No one can work, but they had two or three people in Colombia at the time, and they were able to pick up for the whole office. And they didn't have that same tornado that took out their whole market. And it was a home care business, so it's a 24/7 business. When a tornado came, they actually needed that support and needed to get to their clients and tell them, "Hey, this caregiver can't get to you today because their car got blown away." Or I'm from the Northeast. I don't know what happens in tornadoes, but
Yeah, I could
that
see
stuff
how
happens and their car
yeah,
doesn't
there's
work.
definitely benefits on having your workforce in different places, which by the way, here the American Freshers Academy, we don't have I mean, we have like here in our office, we have like two people. Everybody else is in a different state or a different country. Literally, we are literally an international organization. So, okay, so obviously, these services are not free. So let's talk a little bit about what are the costs. So you have, while the what the employee makes in a very favorable, very fair rate. Like it's not like we're not like paying anybody less than what they would get gain or make in their country. As a matter of fact, they might even be making more than they would if they're working in a company, in a regular company in the country, maybe. So that's not the cost. The cost is reduced because it costs less in that particular country. But there are other expenses that are added to it because that service is not free. Can you speak a little bit
Absolutely.
about what those added costs would be when you're using a BPO?
Absolutely. So there's sometimes in each country, and same in the United States, and even per state within the United States. Like I know California has their own insurances and extra taxes sometimes that need to be paid in New York versus Florida, so on and so forth. Same in other countries. So in Colombia, they do get full-time benefits, insurance, like a 401k equivalent. I'm not sure exactly what the number combination is called there, but obviously in the US we call it the 401k. So all of that's an all-in cost. So we take the salary of the employee, benefits, and essentially what we would call the labor burden of an employee. We have a small overhead fee as well that allows us to do the payroll, account support, and management. And it's an all-in cost. So that's 50 to 60% cost savings that I mentioned isn't based on just the salary. That's based on everything. So if you looked at, even if you were to hire someone, let's say in the United States, and I'll use an easy number like $100,000 a year, $100,000 a year plus usually I think the labor burden for US employees around 12%. Because you have to pay their FICA and these other acronyms that I don't all know the names of, taxes and payroll taxes and all this fun stuff that we get to do in the United States. We do a lot of the same stuff in these other countries, but our cost all in is after all of that. So you get the all in flat fee. And the beauty of it as well is it's not a W-2 to our clients. It's not a 1099 to our clients. I believe it's considered a W-9. It's just an operating expense that, same as you were to hire a marketing company, that's how our employees, for legal tax purposes, are framed and kind of positioned with our clients, even though they're full-time employees or feel like full-time employees because of the work that they're able to accomplish for our clients.
Right. It's actually like paying for a service is basically how it kind of goes, at least for us.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And we're the service in that kind of example, which is cool.
Right, right. All right, so let's talk about real life examples. Like, tell me, share, let's start with one particular, and at the end, I'm going to share our experience here at the academy.
Awesome.
Okay, so, but in the meantime, why don't you share one particular client of yours, right, of the company that uses your services successfully? Like, what do their people do or person does, and how does it work, and how long have they been doing it?
Absolutely. So whenever I get that question, one always pops to mind. I think I currently work with around 100 different clients, a lot of which in the franchise space, which is why kind of going back to where we met at a franchise conference. So we do a lot with that, and franchises are great. We love scaling and just that network effect of one client being happy in a franchise usually does really well to get us connected to more and more and organically grow across the network.
Yeah, let me go ahead and add actually how we met. I wanted to share that a little bit because what happened was I was at a New York franchise show expo, and I happened to be walking the floor of the expo, looking at all the brands and all the services, and I had been thinking about hiring someone from outside of the country. For those of you that are listening to this may not know this, but I'm originally from Guatemala. I was born and raised there. I just moved to the United States since I went to college here. Half my family lives here. Anyway, so I end up staying in this country, but I have been international. I lived in 14 countries supporting, global brands around the world. I've been in charge of a whole international division and supported franchisees around the world. So a third of my career has been in international. So I'm, totally flexible and knowing about the amazing talent that is available outside of the country at a, more favorable rate than we could in the United States. Now, there's certain positions that we have, of course, in the academy that could only be, US based, of course, right? But there are certain here and there that we could do it, and that's where I like to stretch my hand into different countries, and especially for me, something that was important for the academy is that our support team was fully bilingual. And that is very hard to find in the United States. And so I was just walking the floor at the Franchise Expo and came across your particular booth. And what was the message in the booth again?
Oh, it was bringing you a world of talent, 'cause I think we still use that same booth kind of background today.
There you go, bringing you a world of talent. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this is what I was thinking about. And sure enough, I met Ryan over 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and talked about it. And I just decided to give it a shot. So I will talk about our situation and how we use, the VPO services. But it's interesting how we met. And you were in a franchise world. You were in a franchise expo, and so therefore you do a lot of this in the franchise industry. So with that, what was the example that you're going to share?
Oh, absolutely. And as you mentioned, so I think working in the franchise world, I think we work with just in home care alone. I think we're working with about 250 home care agencies, and 95% of them are maybe even more than 95% are franchisees. So one of them in particular that stands out to me is one of the earlier ones when I started at Solvo, that really got me excited about working more in home care and franchise in general. I remember they hired an administrative assistant, and it was an administrative slash executive assistant for the company. They were going to do just helping with billing reconciliation and it was out of Michigan, by the way. And it was a handful of admin tasks, recruiting support to help request documentation, and just a lot of other things that the business needed. And I remember, I think it was 6 months, and the guy, when he signed up, he was a little skeptical, same questions and concerns and risks that you could think of, well, they're going to have access to my billing information. They're going to have access to my team's um, banking and social security numbers. They're going to be a real part of the team. And on the admin staff, they do have a lot of information there. And I remember after, I think it was 6 months, after he took the leap, hired someone, we were able to kind of work through all the security concerns. And 6 months later, ended up hiring an executive assistant for that executive assistant, because she became so important and imperative to the business and the core function of the business, and just did such a nice job that they ended up hiring someone to support her to make her more scalable when she was originally hired to make the owner of the company more scalable, but then was just so, like I said, such a good member of that team, and worked there for I think almost 2 to 3 years. I think almost 3 years working for that same client, and still working with that client today, and going really well. So a lot of other positions, though, I mean, the world is your oyster when you can think of anything that can be done behind a computer and doesn't require boots on ground. And even if it does require boots on ground, usually you could hire someone in the US to do that, and then have someone else just take on the admin part of that job. So you can have kind of a 2-for-1 cost there.
One of the concerns that I had was around phone calls. And I guess it's not like we don't have it, but I'm thinking for other people, right? That they're thinking about how do these employees that are in an office in a different country, how do they contact the people, in the US via phone? Can you tell me how do you solve that problem? Because obviously in the internet and email is easy, but phone calls is different. So how do you solve the phone calling process?
Absolutely. So a lot of the businesses we work with, they already have something called VoIP, or voice over the internet phone, or some people just use the acronym VoIP, or like the phrase VoIP or VoIP. And that's a voice over the internet. So you're able to make a call seamlessly as if you're making a call from your normal cell phone in the US. It's going to pop up with whatever area code we want it to pop up with. Verizon has a service, AT&T, Comcast, or Ring Central is a really popular one. And if a client of ours doesn't have a VoIP system already set up, we have one at Solvo that we can help integrate into their systems. If a client already has that, we recommend just adding a line and credentials for that new Solvo employee, because then they'll fit into your phone system seamlessly, so that when a call does come into your business, it could be triaged to that person. They could be the first person to answer, or they could have an extension on the line. Um, and then on the outbound side, they can make a normal call, have the same phone number from your company, or we could just use the same area code if you want to have a unique phone number for that employee, and they would really be able to make those inbound, outbound calls no different than anyone else. And I think another cool stat, by the way, kind of asking that question that comes to mind is 90% of our clients have actually never hired anyone out of the country before. So, Aisha, for you, you were actually in the kind of the minority when it came to working with us and already having an international team, international experience. Most of our clients have never done it before, and it is very overwhelming to think, how am I going to hire someone in another country? So I like to think because 9 out of 10 of our clients have that don't have that experience. We do have a lot of systems in place and processes in place to cater to those clients to make sure that we can really kind of hold the hand through the process and give that white glove treatment that is needed. So we don't just throw you an employee and say good luck. We do have a lot of processes and systems in place to make sure that things are off to a smooth start and continue to follow that way.
Yeah. And while I had had a lot of international experience, when I first came to you, I have not hired someone yet, for the company. So I have worked in those countries, met the people, right, and interacted with them, but never actually hired someone. And so me actually going through this process, I had to think through, okay, how do I choose the person that I'm going to hire? So here's where I'm going to give a little bit of my tips on that. Because as a business owner, that's starting an organization, right? We are celebrating our ninth anniversary in July and started from nothing, right? So it was just me, and me. And then we started to hire some contractors that I was working with here in the US. And eventually that's when I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe I should hire someone through this process. And that's how I eventually met Ryan, which kind of got the process going. I don't know if I hadn't met you, Ryan, I don't know if I will actually had actually get it done, honestly, because I was just
Right.
thinking about it for a long time, but never actually made a move until I met you. And the fact that I met you in person too made it more comfortable for me also, right? And we've spoken through Zoom a lot, and I've gotten to know you obviously over the years. But what I
Absolutely.
would suggest for the business owners that are thinking, okay, I would love to have another person to support my business. What the process that I went through was see all of the things that I had to do, right, and really write them down through the exercise and the process. Okay, all these things are the things that I'm doing, and of these things, what are the things that I must do, but what are the things that I don't have to do, that is not my point of genius, is not something that I love to do. And from that I came up with a job description for a social media marketing manager, someone that could actually help me build our brand through our platforms and our social media. And that's how I defined, and I actually defined that after I met you, right? Exactly, because I met you first, and I didn't have a specific role at that point that I was looking to hire. I just was start. So I thought, okay, I went, and I decided, okay, of all the things that I do, this is a very good job description of a person that I could hire. And then that's what I provided this VPO company. And through that, and that's part of the process, right? So not only do you help with the managing of the employee, but the first thing that you help with is the recruiting process, right?
That's
So
right.
it's right. So it's part of the service. Like, what are the steps that you go through to recruit the right person for the people?
So the first step is always having an onboarding call. And on that onboarding call, we're really trying to do what you just mentioned. We're trying to define the job description the best we can. We need all that information because we really want to make sure we hit the ground running. We don't just send you the first candidate we can find, but we really want to find you the right candidate. So we want to know, when do you want this person working, so we could find someone that aligns with your schedule first and foremost. We want to know, what background do they have? What's that past experience? Is it a certain college degree, like a degree in marketing, obviously for social media purposes, or if it's HR recruiting, we love finding people with a degree in psychology. And not only are we going to ask you that, we can make recommendations based on what we've seen in the past. So that's kind of part of the process as well. And then we want to see, which I think is kind of unique to I like to think is unique to Solvo, is we want to get those hard skills, but also those soft skills, that personality. Who is that person that's going to fit on your team? Are they a proactive go-getter? Are they a direction follower? Are they someone that's really funny and has a sense of humor, which we get that request more often than you think. So we really want to make sure that, because they're going to be treated, hopefully, by our clients as if they're a part of their US team and an extension of your office, we really want to make sure they fit that culture. And on that initial call, like I said, we're just going over the process of what you want, then from there, and what you need transparently. But then from that call, we're going to be sending you candidates. You're going to have the chance to review their resumes, review their video interviews, gauge their personality, their professionalism, and then ultimately schedule a one-on-one Zoom interview or Microsoft Teams, whatever video platform you prefer. and interview people one on one, whether that's one round of interview, two rounds of interviews, group interviews with your HR or executive team, and make sure you get that right person to make sure it's the right fit. Because if it's not a right fit, we don't charge for the service of sending candidates. We always love the opportunity to put candidates in front of our clients. And the other piece of it as well is if it's we could think of 30 hours a week of work. I'm sure there's always 10, 15 hours of work lying around the office that could be picked up by someone. And on that onboarding call, we really want to get the whole full picture so that we can present that to our candidates that we were looking for, who just as exciting as excited you were to get someone on your team, the candidates that we present the opportunity with are getting to work with the owner of a really cool big US business, and really love that opportunity and working directly with the CEO of said business. So it's a
Mhm.
great proposition for both sides there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember our process, and you presented me with I think 4 or 5 different candidates, and I liked a couple of them. So at the end, I had to do a second, and third interviews, I think, until I chose Laura, our current social media marketing manager, for sure. And it was a great process. You made it really easy, so I didn't have to worry about recruiting or none of that. Just, show up to the scheduled interviews and have those conversations, and from there decide, what, how to choose the person, right? Because you can do all kinds of things, not just interviews, but you can have them do projects and based on that decide. And for me, it was very important that they were fully bilingual. And so doing that interview in English, it was critical because a lot of the work was going to be done obviously in the US. So that
That's
was a
right.
really a very good process for
And
sure.
and Aisha, if it's okay, I'd love to chime in one thing. It was kind of a question that hasn't been asked yet, and typically doesn't come up as often as of recent with kind of when I'm having this conversation with
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
But
definitely.
as you just mentioned, Laura, I think, and I kind of referenced it in my kind of conversation there as well, that we talk a lot on this call and even in general about the benefits to a business owner of hiring people internationally. But same goes to the employees that we get to work with in that example, Laura, who gets the opportunity to work with a business owner on a day-to-day basis in the US, successful and growing a business, without a company like Solvo or just a BPO in general. We kind of act as that bridge to allow you to get that talent, but vice versa for the employees. It's been very cool to see all the different people that get to work with the clients that I'm able to meet at a conference or pick up the phone and call or get introduced to through a networking event or networking group. Just as good as it is for the business owners we work with, it's a really good opportunity for the employees in these other countries. So there is that social aspect that doesn't get discussed because in the world of business, it's always wanting to make a lot of money, but a lot of people, and I know Aisha, you as well, there's a lot of benefit in wanting to help other people in other countries, bringing opportunities to the global workforce, and really kind of level the playing field for people that are typically excluded from a normal job market. That in the US, we need the employees and have a labor shortage more often than not. And especially in other countries, it's the exact opposite. Sometimes there's not enough opportunity. So being able to bring that to other countries, um, there's something to be said about that. And I think, like I said, it's something that we talk about every once in a while. And I found myself not talking about it as much recently. But just as we were talking about Laura and getting down to go and meet the team down there, it's always a really nice thing. And seeing the impact that these opportunities have on the local economy and also the families of the employees that we get to work with.
You are absolutely right, and that was one of the things that motivated me for me to look for employees outside of the United States. A lot of people talk about making a difference and how we do need to help and support people in other countries, and for me, this was a way, one of the ways. Like I said, most of my team is in the U.S., but there are certain positions that I can and have the flexibility to hire from outside and make a difference in those people's worlds and lives and the people around them, that it was definitely something that it was part of my thought process, for sure. So, and we certainly do enjoy. So let me share a little bit about what our example is with Laura. So I shared how for us, I created this job description for a social media marketing manager. And by the way, she knew nothing about franchising. It was part of the interview process, but I wasn't surprised because outside of the United States, franchising is this mysterious thing that it exists with all these American brands, but most people don't know what it is. So yeah, there will be some training that will be required, but really for any employee that you're gonna hire, even in the US, not everyone knows about franchising. So we did end up having to teach her and educate her about franchising, and once in a while we make fun of how when she first joined our academy she had no clue what franchising is, and now she's almost a franchising expert when it comes to communication and sharing our message in the market. And so what she does for us is she manages all of our social media platforms and edits our all the videos again that is shown and shared in our platforms. She does a lot of graphic design, manages our campaigns for our events. So if you are subscribers to our YouTube channel or our any of our Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn channels, or have heard our podcasts, by the way, or have read our LinkedIn newsletter, all of that is Laura. And so with time, and she's going to be celebrating her third anniversary in July, along with our anniversary for our eighth anniversary. She was going to be her third anniversary with us, and she has come a long way. We definitely have invested in her growth and development in the job that she's doing, and she has grown tremendously in the 3 years that she's been with us, and it's been fantastic. And so she's definitely a member of our team, even though she's a service that is provided by Solvo, and she has become an integral part of our team in our organization. So that's the example from our Laura on how she's doing her work. So thank you for all of that, Ryan. So let me ask you a question. Can you share a little bit more about Solvo, about what you do and how you do it, and what kind of companies? You mentioned you have several of them. I think you talked about the home services, right? So can you share a little bit about the companies that already work with you, and the services that you provide that maybe other companies that might be compared to like exclusive EOR companies, how you differentiate from them?
Absolutely. So Solvo, just kind of maybe a little bit of a background here, is Solvo was actually started back in 2015, where the founder of Solvo owned another company. It was a big steel company down in Texas. They had manufacturing facilities out in Colombia at the time, I believe. Love the people, love the culture, but we're only doing manufacturing there when they eventually had a pretty high turnover in one of their logistics position in Beaumont, Texas, and said, "Hey, we're doing manufacturing out in Colombia. Why not test out some back office, some logistics positions?" And one logistics position placed down there went really well as kind of that test, which then eventually led to the back office test, which was about 8 or 9 different positions and saving about 30, 40 grand per position when you got up to 10 positions, saving about $400,000 a year. And they're performing just as well to the Texas counterpart. Eventually moved his whole back office down there. And that was in 2012, over the next few years, different vendors that he would work with, different um, family members, friends would say, "Hey, how do I hire people down in Colombia?" So that's where in 2015 was kind of the inception of Solvo Global, where we became a business that would help U.S. companies hire people at the time only in Colombia. I was actually only in Medellin, Colombia at the time. And then in 2018, we were acquired by our now parent company, Venture Employer Services. Many people know ADP or Paychecks, but Venture Employer Services, one of the largest PEOs in the country, acquired Solvo because they had a handful of positions with us. And fast forward a few years, kind of COVID comes around, and um, everyone's forced to work remotely. So the idea of hiring people remotely was a lot more common, as well as there was a labor shortage just with the unemployment benefits and just the whole shakeup that we had. There was just not enough employees to go around. So it really forced the world into not only the remote work, but also looking at other alternatives, which is where I joined the team back in 2021. And I think what makes us, kind of to answer your question, what makes us different is the really nice partnership and relationship we're able to set up with the client to the employee. It's not a call center employee. It's not an agent that you refer to them as agent one, agent two, agent three. We really try to find really good clients that are just looking to expand their team and look at Solvo as a way to do so versus looking to outsource some tasks or outsource some work. We have a model for that more on the contact center, call center side, which by all means we're always happy to help on. But on the Solvo side, we love setting up employees for success by finding clients that are looking to do exactly what you did, Aisha. Look to invest in growth, look to develop someone, look to really bring them into your American Franchise Academy family and treat them as a team member. Some companies are a little bit more friendly and have that family mentality that we really do well with here. So having that structure and really being able to get as involved as we need. So if someone's falling behind or if there's some extra work needed to be done, we have a whole support mechanism and team to help with that, especially for people that have never done stuff out of the country. We have a whole white glove service there. And then we have clients that are maybe a little bit more independent, maybe would classify more as yourself, Aisha, someone that know what you want, you know what you need, you know how to get there, and we're able to get out of your way so you can get everything you need done. So that's kind of the benefit of Solvo. We have a couple different abilities and flexibility, I should say, to jump in when needed, but also step out of the way when needed as well.
Yeah, one of the things that was very important to me was that she was, or at least she felt like, and we felt like she was part of our team, which is one of the
Absolutely.
challenges that I've been having actually with Solvo because you have your own, processes and procedures in regards to, you know, she has a supervisor on your side and they support this and they support that. It's like a whole lot of people over there. I said, look, I don't know who they are, but you're part of our team, and so that's one of the things that it was very important to me. Like I'm happy that she has all that support from your organization because you do in an office and everything, but I really wanted her, and we treat her like she's part of our team, and that's just, the bottom line for us.
Right.
From other people might be happy that they have that other extended support too, right? So I mean, it's good for us, and what I really enjoy is that she does get all the benefits of having us. She working for a company in Colombia, which by the way is where she's from. She's from Medellin, Colombia. Beautiful city. I love it. I've been there many times before. Haven't been since we hired Laura, but I'm
Absolutely.
definitely planning to go over there and visit her in person one of these days for sure. But yeah, so I really enjoy how much support she gets from you and the company over there. And then, but still, when it comes to our team, everybody sees her as just part of our company. So it's very great.
Which is awesome.
So that's wonderful. Thank you for all of this information. I think that for those of you that are listening or watching this podcast, it gives you a pretty good idea of what a VPO is and what they do. So we're going to put in the description a way to reach out to Mr. Ryan here if you want to learn more about what Solvo does. Before we close, would you like to say anything before we end the podcast, Ryan?
No, I think the only thing is, Aisha, thank you for the opportunity to join the podcast, but more importantly, thank you for the opportunity to work with you. It's been really cool. Like I said, my favorite clients that I get to work with are the ones that really embrace their employees and treat them like a team member and help them develop. It makes me kind of get that warm, fuzzy feeling to not only do my job, which is finding U.S. companies to hire people internationally, but to know that there's that kind of that social aspect that we mentioned that you're able to get someone to help you grow your business, which is only going to be able to help you support more franchises in the US, and vice versa with Laura. It's able to help her get a really well-paying job with good benefits and to be able to develop into the person that's as you mentioned, a franchise expert on social media, which I'm sure will be great for her long-term career, and hopefully that whole career is with you. And then the only last thing is to formally on a recorded call to formally invite you to Colombia and Medellin so that we can host you, take you out to some meals, and we love doing it. I love going down there. I've gone down like 20 times. So for anyone listening, really nice place to visit, perfect weather, really good food, and more importantly, really, really, really nice people. So
Beautiful.
again, yeah, appreciate the opportunity on the podcast and the opportunity to get to work with you over the past few years.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. I'm definitely gonna have to put it in the, unless I put it in the calendar, it's not gonna happen. So I just need to pick a date and just put it there and make it a vacation that I can expense since it will be a visit to my employee in Colombia. So that will
And
be another one, another of the benefits of having someone that works in other countries. You can go visit them and have an opportunity to do a business meeting and be able to expense the trip. So
absolutely. And we have an office in Guatemala City as well. So if you ever want to go visit Guatemala and meet our team for a business expense, and you can send that to the IRS, that it's for meeting the Solvo Global team down there. So we'd always be happy to host you there, Colombia, or whatever country makes the most sense for you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. I appreciate it. Well, this is the podcast. I hope that this gave you a perspective of something that's possible for you. I know that this might be something new for some people, but this is definitely something that is going to be of huge value for small businesses. You had to go through the process of determining what that position would be, what would they be doing, and then choosing the right person and then the right company to work with, right? Solvo obviously is one of the choices that you have, and like I said, I'm going to leave all the contact information in the show notes so that you can access Ryan and learn more about what they do and how it's possible for you. And I will tell you that not only will you be able to get an addition to your team at a favorable rate, but also making a difference in someone that wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise. So with that being said, thank you for being with the show today, franchisee supporters, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much.